help me. A few years ago, my boss went on a holiday for a couple of weeks to Spain. Midway through the holiday, he got a phone call from the police informing him that his sister had passed away in a fire in a flat. So he rushes back home early, deals with the police and the passing and everything. My employers told him to take some time off to grieve, which he duly did. When he came back to work on a Monday morning, a few weeks later, he invited him into our coffee room to talk and offer him our sympathy and support. About half an hour later, he excused himself and started to work. He walks into his office, sits down at his desk, turns on his computer, and checks to see if there's any messages on his phone. And the very first message that plays is his sister screaming down the phone, "Help me, help me, I'm trapped, I can't breathe." It still sends chills down my spine to think about it. Can you imagine? He was pretty traumatized. The voice. My grandfather told me this story about how one time he was sitting in a chair in front of the house when he heard his wife repeatedly calling him from inside the house. The thing is, my grandmother passed away a few years before that, but he told me that the voice was so present that he actually got up to look inside the house. And as soon as he got inside, he heard a loud crash behind him, turned around to see that the chair he had been sitting in moments ago had been crushed by the cast iron gutter that fell on it. If he didn't come inside the house, he would have probably been seriously injured. Every time I think about it, I wonder if my grandma protected him somehow. Car at the red light. While driving home with a buddy from the high school summer job at the local amusement park. It was about 3 in the morning, and there was no traffic at all. We got stuck at the red light, and it just never seemed to end. And while we were waiting, another car pulled up next to us. It was a big black hearse in immaculate condition, with a clown in the driver's seat, with full makeup and costume on. He never moved, didn't look at us, nothing. Just stared straight ahead the whole time. I just need a haircut. I was an RA in a dorm for 2 years in college. A girl who had been having stress issues finally snapped. She was found by someone in a dark stairwell. I was in another dorm, circa 1887, so there was plenty of nooks and crannies. By the time she was found, she had already torn out half of her hair and eaten it. She just kept saying, "I just need a haircut," in a perfectly normal voice. It took 6 of us and the police sedating her to finally get her strapped down to an ambulance gurney. To this day, I can't forget how powerful she was. She couldn't have weighed over 120 pounds. Yet, she had this sort of superhuman ability to rip her arms away and to tear out another clump of hair and stuff it in her mouth, all with a perfectly straight face. Apocalypse is coming. September 2014, a Utah boy discovered his parents and 3 brothers deceased after arriving home. The Salt Lake Tribune reported finding a to-do list in the house, which included tasks like feed the pets and find someone to watch the house written on it. The found list gave the impression that the parents were preparing to go on vacation. However, there was no suicide note, no warning that they would do this, no explanation. After autopsies, it was revealed that the 5 family members consumed a lethal concoction of drugs that September day. However, why and how the parents and kids consumed the drugs remained a mystery. Sometimes later, police revealed more terrifying information about the case. According to family members' statements, parents' motivation included believing that the world's end was near and frequently spoke of leaving this world. Apparently, scared of the apocalypse, the parents poisoned the kids and themselves. The perfect crime. On November 10th, 1923, Nathan Leopold committed to travel 6 hours from Chicago to the University of Michigan, accompanied by his friend and lover, Richard Loeb. They intended to break into Loeb's former fraternity, but all they had taken was a typewriter, a few watches, some penknives, and around $80 in loose change. Leopold was agitated on the way back to Chicago because the robbery had been a big effort for a small payoff. When Leopold finally stopped complaining, Loeb began to discuss his idea of committing the perfect crime. While they continued to travel through the country roads towards Chicago, they broke into several homes and started a few fires. But none of their crimes had been published in the media. Loeb decided to commit a crime that would create a huge buzz: abduction and homicide of a child. After plotting their plan through the winter, in May they kidnapped the child they knew had a wealthy father who would pay the ransom. Following their abduction, they beat the boy's skull with a chisel, jammed a rag down his throat, and disposed of the body. When the two returned to the city, Leopold dropped the ransom letter into a post box. However, their plan to execute the perfect crime failed. The following day, a passerby spotted the child's lifeless body, and soon the police traced Leopold by finding the eyeglasses he dropped near the body. On May 31st, 10 days after the homicide, both young men came clean and revealed to the state attorney how they had slayed Bobby Franks. Nathan Leopold confessed that they had kidnapped and killed Bobby only for the thrill of it. At the time of the murder, Richard Loeb and Nathan Leopold were 18 and 19 years old. They were sentenced to 99 years in prison. Milwaukee Cannibal. Between 1978 and 1991, American serial killer and sex offender Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer, monikers that the Milwaukee Cannibal, slayed and dismembered 17 men and boys aged 14 to 33. Dahmer dismembered and kept their organs and bones in his home and used them for carnal pleasure. Sources claim that Dahmer was fascinated with deceased animals from a young age. When he was 4 years old, Dahmer may have noticed his father removing animal corpses from the house's foundation. This may have sparked his mania with deceased animals. Dahmer referred to animal bones as his fiddlesticks and was oddly pleased by the sound that the bones made. In 1991, after one of his potential victims escaped, Dahmer was captured and admitted to his crimes. Despite being diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, schizotypal personality disorder, and psychotic disorder, Dahmer was named to be legally sane at his trial. 3 years later, a fellow inmate fatally beat him. Cell phone stalker. In 2007, ABC reported on a series of ominously precise grade threats made to different families via cell phones. The families claimed that the calls which threatened to slay their children, pets, and grandparents came in any time at night. According to one family, the caller seemed to know when the kids left school and when they were home alone. Families also received full voicemails with recordings of their private conversations. According to the victim, the caller was aware of their activities and what they were wearing. The family of Courtney Kuykendall, 16, said that her cell phone started sending text messages to her friends by itself in February, which is when the family's problems began. The Kuykendall family also reported a caller having a scratchy voice and threatening to slice their throats, which continued for months. Another victim reported receiving a call from an unknown caller saying they preferred lemons when the woman was slicing limes in her kitchen. The police couldn't find the perpetrators. Marrakesh arch killer. The late 1800s saw the homicides of at least 36 women by Moroccan shoemaker and trader Haji Mohammed Misfevi, monkered as the Marrakesh arch killer. He hosted dinner parties for affluent women at his home, where he would drug them and then decapitate them with a dagger while they were asleep. He robbed them of their possessions and money and buried them. Authorities in Morocco recovered the remains of 20 mutilated people in a deep trench beneath his store, and another 16 were located in the garden outside. Ms. Fevy admitted that he slaved for money, often very modest sums. In 1906, Ms. Fevy was eventually arrested and executed. Ms. Fevy was initially ordered to be crucified. However, the sentence was altered to beheading in response to the public outrage. Ultimately, it was decided that he should suffer. Every day for 4 weeks, he was carried from his cell onto the market square and whipped 10 times with a rod made of prickly acacia. On June 11th, 1906, Ms. Fevy was to be walled up alive at the Marrakesh Marketplace Bazaar. Ms. Fevy went silent on the third day, and many people in the crowd expressed their rage that he perished too quickly. Haunted Elsa doll. The creepy old-fashioned porcelain doll with a Victorian appearance, red lips, rosy cheeks, and blue eyes referred to Annabelle may come to mind when one thinks of a haunted doll. However, it is unlikely that anyone still keeps one of those in their house, unless that house is Warren's Occult Museum in Monroe, Connecticut. However, those dolls are not the only ones getting possessed. Disney's Frozen Elsa doll, given as a Christmas 2013 gift in the Houston region, made headlines when it appeared to start acting paranormal. For 2 years, the doll was working as it was technically supposed to, reciting phrases from the movie and singing "Let It Go" when a button was pressed. In 2015, it started randomly alternating between English and Spanish languages. The woman who purchased the doll claimed that even when the switch was off, the doll would start speaking and singing randomly. In December 2019, the family chose to get rid of the Elsa doll. Despite tossing it in the garbage, the family eventually discovered it hidden inside a bench in the living room weeks later. Following the discovery, Elsa started to speak and sing solely in Spanish, soon after which the family made another attempt to scrap the Elsa doll. The doll was double bagged and put in the bottom of the garbage can, which was soon picked up by waste collectors. The family left for a trip sometime later, but when they were back, a haunted doll was waiting in their backyard. In a last attempt, the family sent the Elsa doll through the mail to a Minnesotan family friend, who fastened the possessed doll to the front bumper of his truck. According to the woman's most recent update in October 2020, the doll hasn't returned to Houston yet.